Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to His Holiness Candramauli Maharaj's daily online discourses. Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Maharaj, we will be continuing from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse 27 onwards, and I will share the screen for the verse.
No, there's a change in sequence today.
Okay.
Yeah, we are on the eve of Lord Ram's appearance very soon, and I think it's Thursday this week, which is 3 days. So we're going to focus our discussions, topics on the Ramayana for the next 3 or 4 days.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Starting today. So you don't have to do anything. That's moving things around. So I'll just speak in general. Ramadi Moti Supalani Amina Krishna Namatara Karo Duvane Sikinti Krishna Swayam Samagava Paramam Pamando Gozundamari Purusham Samaham Bhajami. In this verse from the Rama Samhita describes the different manifestations and incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And in that verse, it heralds the prime manifestation or incarnation of the Lord as Sri Ramacandra. Lord Ramacandra appeared approximately 2 million years ago in an area which we still know in India as Ayodhya Dham. It's a very sacred place. It's the birthplace or appearance place of the Supreme Lord Sri Ram. This adventure in devotion and in great spiritual principles and great moral and philosophical teachings is really very much condensed within the Ramayana itself. In all of the Lord's pastimes, there are innumerable messages and meanings which are meant for us, the readers, to understand, and as the devotees, to learn to apply these things in our practice of devotional service. The Ramayana is unique in its presentation on these because it is centers around the character of the main person, which is Lord Ram himself. If we carefully see and study the life of Krishna, there's things we cannot do that Krishna did in somewhat of a routine and ordinary way in his activities, such as marrying 16,108 queens, lifting Govardhan Hill, performing many of his extraordinary pastimes with his devotees that have messages for each and every one of us, but the activity itself is not copyable, not even in the closest sense of the word. But in Ram Leela, Ram, although he's a Supreme Personality of Godhead, he plays a particular role within society. He's a king. And in that role as a king, he's exhibiting the highest quality of morality, civility, and spiritual knowledge in his role as a monarch. a very powerful ruling king. And therefore, you see, people today even speak that we would like to have Ram Raj in the world, or the rule of Ram. In other words, if the kings and leaders, monarchs, and heads of different states could adopt some of the principles that were used by Ram, the world would be a much better place, obviously. And so he taught from that. And to describe Krishna in one word in terms of his leelas is that they're extraordinary. And they're full of loving relationships with his devotees. The same with Ram, but particularly with Krishna. But if you had to describe Ram in one word, I think you would say righteousness, strict adherence to the principles of monarchy in the position of a ruler, and at the same time, very strict in following scriptural injunctions in the execution of his duties as a leading king. So you see a certain quality that Ram wanted to exhibit. So I think the word is righteousness. When he had to deal with so many different elements, and in one sense, he's even accused of being unrighteous because his exhibition of righteousness was an ornament that he wore in his dealings with his devotees and his activities as a monarch. When he supposedly, from the material point of vision, killed Bali, the monkey soldier who was at odds with his brother Sugriva. And Ram apparently killed him in an unfair way, which is quite the exception in Ram's activities. And therefore, there are 2 or 3 different episodes in the Ramayana where he's taken exception for his activities because of his ideal principle of righteousness, morality, and scriptural adherence. But when we understand that there is a higher purpose in whatever the Lord does, even if he apparently breaks some of the civility or some of the principles that govern Kshatriya conduct or spiritual conduct, it is not done in a whimsical way or a way just to act out of the ordinary. It's done for a higher spiritual gain, usually for the benefit of the people who are involved with him. So Ram is righteous. The story of the Ramayana is one of the most beautiful stories in the world. It's full of romance. It's full of compassion. It's full of allegiance to the Supreme Lord. It's full of intrigue in carrying out various types of activities done by those who are opposing him. There are so many amazing qualities. If we should make it a very yearly policy, at least once a year, to seriously read the entire Ramayana. Of course, that is 24,000 verses. And it was done by one of the greatest of all sages, who was formerly a murderer. His name was Valmiki Muni. He became a Muni in the association of another great Muni, and that was Narada Muni. Narada Muni's spiritual prowess is exemplary. And sometimes he's called the Rish of the demigods. He's called Devarshi Rish, Devarshi. or the Deva, the Rishi of the Devas. He's also one of the sons of Lord Brahma, one of the principal sons of Brahma. And he's born out of the mind of Brahma, or he appears out of the mind of Lord Brahma. Such an exalted personality gave his association and instructions and guidance to this murderer whose name was Valmiki. Valmiki was such a cruel murderer that he was ruthless in his killing. But upon meeting Narada Muni, he could recognize that here was a very saintly person. So this is an interesting quality. You see nowadays, people who are sinful, who are rogues, dacoits, and people who make their livelihood from exploiting others, they don't recognize or appreciate spiritual people. In fact, they consider them a burden on society, and they just skip over them or ignore them, or sometimes try to interfere with them. But you see in the history of Vedic culture, where even people who are of low-class qualities, rogues, murderers, and others, there was a certain respect and allegiance for spiritual people. Even if they couldn't follow them or couldn't change their life according to religious principles, still there was well, you might say, there was an honor that was given to saintly people. And that was his good fortune. That was Valmiki Muni. When he came in association with Narada Muni. And Narada tried to help him by encouraging him to give up his sinful ways, by explaining how severely he would suffer from the results of his action. His heart became somewhat changed, and his mind also. And gradually he started to think in terms of making his life more spiritual. Simply by the association, it says, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Sastri Hoy, Lavamata Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. That just by one moment's association with a great soul, one can destroy all the reactions of sinful activities that have been accumulated for many millions of lives. So this type of association is both difficult to achieve, but very powerful in purification of a person, even if they do not fully surrender. Simply by that association, just like you come in contact with fire, you see the heat, you see the light. Maybe you won't use the fire for any practical purposes, but you do get an effect of the fire's presence. So in the same way, saintly persons make a difference wherever they go. That's why it is said for those who are in the preaching mood, the sannyas order, and others who are in the preaching mood, they should go everywhere and anywhere in order to deliver the message to the conditioned souls and give the conditioned souls an opportunity for service. And in that way, the conditioned souls will make advancement towards the path of perfection. So Narada was trying his best in explaining how Valmiki could become, changed. And so he recommended that he chant the name of Rama. But Valmiki wasn't able to do that. And so you find that even today, that people who are very, very sinful, low class, they can't sound the name of the Lord, even in their mind, because of their sinful nature. It just doesn't manifest. And so he couldn't say the name of Ram. But a saintly person is very resilient to be able to see how to use different means by which to bring the conditioned souls upward towards perfection. And so he said, all right, then chant the name of Mara. Now, Mara is the god of death. And it also contains the same syllables as the name Rama, except they're switched around. M-A-R-A instead of R-A-M-A. So Valmiki, wanting to purify himself, wanted to become free from his sinful reactions and become a, you might say, a moral person, made an attempt to chant the names of Mara. And he did. He was able to chant the name of God of Death. But in his chanting, because the name, once it's chanted continuously, the letters somehow or other connect. So saying Mara, 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 Rama, 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 Rama. So he was actually starting to say the name of Rama after some time, chanting the name of Mara. And then after being able to connect with the name of Rama, because the name of the Lord is pure, it's non-different than the Lord, and it's not part of the material energy. And then he was gradually, his mind and his heart was becoming free from the reactions of sinful activities. And actually, because of his determination in chanting, he actually reached the stage of freedom from all sinful activity. In other words, he became pure. Not a pure devotee, but pure in action, pure in mind. And therefore, later on, we read how one day he was roaming through the jungles, and there were two birds. They call them lovebirds, is a kind of birds that they're more like doves, you know. So when they come together, the male and female, they're very affectionate towards each other, and they make all kinds of sounds expressing that affection. So he was listening to these two birds singing like that. But out of nowhere, a hunter shot an arrow into these birds and killed, I believe it killed the male bird. And then Valmiki, now having been somewhat purified, became angry when he noticed what had happened to that bird. And so he pronounced a curse upon the hunter. But when he sang the curse and spoke the curse, he spoke it in very pure, perfect Sanskrit meter. And it became like a song. And then he noticed how perfect that curse was done with all of the alliterations and all of the ornamentations of a perfect Sanskrit verse. And he somewhat surprised himself. And then, of course, later on, Lord Brahma appeared to him and told him, you, using that same meter, that same verse, you write about the glories of Lord Ramacandra. So on the instructions of Lord Brahma, he did, and he composed 24,000 verses, which we know as the Ramayana. Ramayana is popular throughout the Asian world, and it is known as the Abhikava Kavya. Kavya means poem. It's the original poem. And people in different countries read the Ramayana in their own language. But some of them see it as an epic or an interesting story. And some have an idea it is the glorification of the Lord, but very few. So practically all of the Asian countries have some version of the Ramayana by which is part of their literature. The Ramayana is replete with various types of sentiments. Here I'll read one statement from a great poet. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in the night. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in the night. But does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day? So yeah, God appears in light, even in the darkness of night, to those who seek the Lord. But in the daytime, the human form is what's important. In other words, what is night for the conditioned soul is the time of awakening for the self-realized. And what is the time of awakening for the self-realized is night for the conditioned souls. And so it is a great epic. It centers around a very powerful Rakshasa demon whose name was Ravana, who wanted to exploit as many areas of the world he could for his own selfish interest. He was a powerful warrior. He was the son of a great person named Vishwava, who was a Brahmin, but his mother was a demon. So it explains that generally the son takes on the qualities of the mother and the daughter takes on the qualities of the father, generally. Not an absolute principle. But in many cases, you find that, just like Kamsa. Kamsa's father was Ugrasena, but his mother was a demon. One demon in disguise took the form of Ugrasena to have union with the wife of Ugrasena, whose name was Vegavati, I believe. Vegavati, yeah. And of course, he had a situation where also the wife of Vishrava was also tricked by a demon. And therefore, this powerful and very vicious son named Ravana was born. But he was intelligent. He had great intelligence. He knew the Vedas. He had some understanding of religious principles, but he used these principles to exploit. Sometimes it is said that this knowledge of devotion, when in the hands of the wrong people, can wreak havoc in the world. So that's why in many cases, when we speak, we don't explain certain things about devotional service because it can be misinterpreted or used for one's own selfish interest. Devotional service is very exclusive. It includes a lot of aspects. And therefore, unscrupulous or self-interested persons will take the knowledge of Shastra and use it for their own, when we say selfish interests. So you see that. So Ravana, he was powerful and he had received a boon that he would not be killed by any creature. And he had performed austerities, and therefore he got the audience of Lord Brahma, who gave him these benedictions. But he refused to accept the benediction of not being killed by a human, because it even mentions in the Bhagavatam, you can read it in the fifth canto, fifth chapter, I think it's verse 21 and 22, that there are gradations of living beings with more and more intelligence. And the intelligence of the Rakshashas are much greater than the intelligence of the humans. That's why a lot of times humans, especially on this planet, are fooled by the demons all the time, because the demons are very intelligent and they know how to manipulate the material energy to get what they want. And some of these demons are coming from other planets. And there's a whole planet where the Rakshasas actually reside. So Ravana was of that nature. He was very highly intelligent. He had amassed a large fortune. He had a city which was made of gold, and he had hundreds and millions of followers who were his armies, along with much allegiance from his family members and friends. He was handsome. He had many wives. He was also very charitable. One of the qualities of demons is that they also have this charitable nature, where they use charity as a way to get something back in return. So that it says that when you give charity, that it comes back to you in some form or another, depending on who you give. So Krishna mentions that in the Bhagavad Gita in the 16th chapter, when he's describing the qualities and characteristics of the demons, he mentions they also are charitable. But their charity is selfishly given in a way that they can receive some benedictions and some reciprocations from that charity. So this is just a little bit about this Ravana. And so the demigods were quite disturbed by the presence of Ravana. So they went to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma decided to perform some austerities and penances and call the presence of the Supreme Lord into the appearance of the material world at that time. So that's what led up to the appearance of Lord Ramacandra. Of course, as is described, his appearance wasn't so easily formulated. He came in line with the Ayodhya kings. And there was this very powerful lineage of monarchs coming from that area of the world. They were from the Surya Vamsa. Krishna had come from the lunar Vamsa, or the moon dynasty, and Ram is from the Surya Vamsa, from the sun dynasty. And his father, the preceding king, was Dasarat, who was a very powerful warrior. He had received the name Dasarat. Dasa means 10 and Ra means chariot, that he could fight with 10 chariot soldiers at the same time. And he had done that and received that title, Dasarat. So that was his glorification title that was given to him. So we know him as that. He was King Dasarat. And he had 350 wives. Some people say 3 wives. And that is generally what's written in the Ramayana. But if you go to other areas and you scrutinizingly study, you find he had 3 principal wives, Usalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. But he had 350 wives altogether. Why did he have so many wives? It wasn't his inclination, but it was done as a protective feature, because at that same time when he was present, Parasaram, the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, to kill Kshatriya kings. He hated Kshatriyas. And so he would roam the world looking for the envious Kshatriyas, and then he would challenge them and destroy them. So Dasarat was aware of the presence of Parasuram. So he sent out his messengers that when please give word when Parasuram is in the area. Because Parasuram made one condition, that he would not challenge or kill the Kshatriya king if he was engaged in a marriage ceremony. So in order to keep Parasuram away, every time he came near Ayodhya, Dasarat would have another marriage. Quite interesting way to protect yourself. But that was the promise that Parasuram had given. He would not challenge anyone who was getting married. And so that's why he had 350 queens. But the three that we know, his main one was Kaushalya. He was eventually she became the mother of Ram. Then you have Sumitra, who was the mother of Lakshman and Sutrudna. And then you have the fourth brother, which was Bharat. His mother was Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi was the favorite queen of Dasarat, although Kaushalya was the principal queen. So this sort of sets the stage for the appearance of the Lord, and how the Lord appears is practically a small book in itself, as it describes his appearance into the world and into the family of Dasarat. So for the next few days, we'll turn some of these unlimited nectar of the pastimes of Lord Ram. We encourage devotees to read also, because when you read and then you hear the lectures about the same topic you're reading, you get much more from the lectures. You get much more from the information that has been spoken. So, and of course, that reading is a very wonderful way to go deeper into the mood of bhakti, into the mood of the life of the Supreme Lord. The more we know about God, the more we become God conscious. Okay, so I'll stop there and see if there's anyone who would like to comment.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful session leading up to Ramanavami, exhibiting the qualities and narrating a short history of how the great sage Valmiki composed the Ramayana, inspired by Narad Muni. So, dear devotees, I would encourage you to turn on your cameras to make this session more personal, more interactive, and would welcome if you have any questions, comments, realizations regarding this wonderful topic of Lord Ramacandra. Oh, Sridevi Mataji, please go ahead. Thank you.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Guru Maharaj, the glories of Lord Ram are well known throughout India, and there's great reverence, love, affection, and worship of Lord Ram. The moment you say Krishna, then people have a different impression. Oh, he's very naughty, he's very lusty, he's very mischievous, he tells lies, he has so many tricks up his sleeve, he's like this, he's like that. So when we say we are ISKCON people, we are worshipping Krishna, people, at least many Indian relatives, they just look askance at us. So how can we help them to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he can do anything?
Well, that's the difference between Ram and Krishna. Ram is playing the part of an ideal person, of the ideal monarch. So he's following all of the principles that govern that role he's playing. An ideal husband, Ekapatni, the ideal king, following the advice of his ministers, an ideal, what else? Ideal king, ideal husband, and just an ideal person who follows the scriptures very carefully. But Krishna is God, and he's not playing any role. He comes as a supreme personality of Godhead. He is the author of morality. To say Krishna is immoral is what we say short-sighted, ignorant, foolish, no understanding of the nature or the position of God. He follows his own laws, and he makes the laws, and he also follows his own laws. So if he wants to marry 16 million queens instead of 16,000, he can do that because he's God. In fact, it says in the scriptures, every woman is the wife of the Lord. So therefore, of course, people don't like what I'm about to say, but I'll say it anyway. So if you get married to another woman, of course, when you get married, you're getting married to a woman, but that woman belongs to Krishna, not you. In fact, all souls belong to you, Krishna. So, yeah, but that's Krishna. He's God. He acts according to his own understanding. He doesn't break religious principles. He sets the standard for actually religious and moral principles. If you can maintain 16,108 queens, then you can do that. But you can't do that, so you don't try. It's even hard to maintain one wife nowadays. But Krishna can maintain 16 million, 16 billion. So if you're as good as Krishna, then you can maybe try to do some of the similar things he does. But you're not as good as Krishna. You can never be as good. He is Nityo, Nityanam, Chaitanas, Chaitananam, Eko Bahoda Vidadati Kamam. He is that supreme eternal that maintains all of the other eternals. There's no one greater than, no one equal to him. He is superior to everyone. He makes the laws, and if he wants to break the laws, then his breaking of the laws is not breaking of the laws, but actually establishing another religious principle for his own transcendental pleasure. He's God. But Ram is also God, but he's not playing that role. He's not playing the role of God. He's playing the role of a righteous king, perfect husband, a perfect friend. He's dealing with the supreme principle of morality. That's wrong. In a role of a human being. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also God, but he took sannyas. So he was very much adhering to the principles of sannyas, but he doesn't have to do that. But because he took that role in this world, we followed them. But Krishna is not playing any role other than this, that he is he's a lovable boy of Vrindavan. He's brought the spiritual world down to the material world. So there's a qualitative difference in understanding the position and activities of Ram and Krishna. Have to understand. So these people who criticize, they're just ignorant. That's all.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Mataji, for asking very relevant questions that many have. Thank you. Maharaj, just in continuation with the question from Mataji, Lord Ramacandra is referred to as Maryada Purushottam and Krishna as Ramacandra and Krishna as a Leela Purushottam. So as devotees, what shall we learn from the pastimes of both Lord Ramacandra and Lord Krishna? Because they are, although established in the principles of religion, they are a bit varied in that sense.
One is if you have a wife, it's your duty to protect her and give her all care. And not that even if there's some discourse, you don't give up and get married again. He had problems with his wife, but still he didn't get remarried and say, all right, she's gone. I'm all alone. I need another partner. No, he did everything. He killed the entire race of Rakshasas in order to give protection to his wife. And that's one of the main principles. The husband must give full protection to his wife. That's his, what we say, inviolable duty, something he cannot, if he breaches that, he is not following his duty as a husband. But the problem was nowadays women don't want to be protected, so and that's the problem. They want to do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do. So they don't listen to their husbands or anybody, and so that's why it's pretty hard for the men to give protection to their wives because they don't follow. It's like I was giving this class in one seminar program in Croatia, and we were in a resort area. It was a kind of like a yatra, and I was talking about the duty of a husband. That one of the duties of a husband is to give protection to the wife. And so the husband and wife were sitting there, one couple was sitting there, was sitting in their respective places. And then this gigantic wasp or a bee came flying in the window and started going for this lady. So I turned to her husband, come on, do something. And she was trying to fight off this insect. And he looked at me like, she can do it, don't worry. It's like, so it didn't work.
Thank you, Maharaj, for that answer. Thank you. Scarlet Mataji, do you want to go ahead and ask? Thank you.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Thank you for the wonderful class. And I'm so sorry that I have camera off. It's because I don't have any cover on my head. I have very bad headache, so please forgive me. My question is protection of a man who has to protect their wife, the father has to protect their daughter, or their brother have to protect, and so on and so on. We know that it's not all the time it happened. Many times the man do exactly the way they want to, and they don't protect their wife. They even abuse their position as a husband. Do these women who are going through such a life, do they have any how to say any responsibility to their man? Do they still follow and obey the man who is 100% against the rule and regulation of the faith that says the man has to protect the woman, but they don't do it? Do the woman has to still obey him?
One of these bombshell questions.
I'm so sorry. You know what? I am born in Iran, and unfortunately, this happens in Iran all the time. All the time. I'm not talking about Indian family. I'm talking about my country now. So with all the respect, I've seen it all the time. I have lived it myself. So unfortunately, this is the reality. This is the truth. But at the same time, the woman, what to do?
Slow down a little bit. Slow down from fifth gear to first gear. Do you know what's going on in Iran right now?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a huge uprising amongst the women protesting this.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're fighting back.
Their fight are against the government. It's not against their husband that abuse them. That is my thing. Not against their husband. It's against the government.
Oh, it's connected. It's a women's issue. The men run the government, so they're fighting against, in one sense, men.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't condone, abuse in the name of loyalty. But then again, when situations arise like that, it will be hard to keep the allegiance of the wife to the husband. There has been incidences, and maybe we find that in Islamic culture, where although that abuse continues, they remain somewhat connected like that. But abuse is simply demoniac. No one should abuse another person for any reason. Children should not be abused. Women are constantly being abused. There are different people who are in positions of control who like to abuse or minimize their subordinates. So that type of leadership, that type of control position is a deviation from the position itself. Therefore, correction, if the woman is acting wrongly, or if the child is acting wrongly, there should be some type of program for correction. But physical abuse, I think that's what you're talking about, is not condoned in any scripture or in modern civility. Just like domestic violence is one of the biggest problems in America. And it causes great, what's the word, great concern amongst the police force. And I have a personal example of that. I was riding with a group of devotees one early Sunday morning. We were on our way to a Hindu temple for a program. And this was early in the morning on Sunday, around 7 a.m., maybe a little earlier. And our car broke down. It got a flat tire. And so we were there trying to and then the police pulled up to assist us. So I started to just chat with the police officers, in a more kind of a friendly chat. And I said to one of the officers, I said, I guess for you guys, it's kind of a quiet time now, Sunday morning. He said, no, the weekends, he said, are the worst time for our duty as a police officer. He said, there's domestic violence really escalates on the weekend because usually people are working, but when they're home together. And he says, when we tried to go in there to try to settle the situation, we find opposition from either one of the persons or even both sometimes. Sometimes they see us as intruders. They even call us, and then when they call us, when we come in there, sometimes they're against us. So it's such a volatile situation where the emotions get so, distraught and explosive that it loses all sensibility because of the closeness of the relationship. So this domestic violence is one of the biggest problems in the world. And it kind of spills out into the civil community also. It's not something that is private so much. So therefore, in our Krishna conscious society as devotees, we have what is called premarital training for both the woman and the men. They could go to competent people who teach them how to play their role as a husband, as a wife, according to scripture, according to morality, according to practical stability. All of these things are taught in our society. Of course, people have to apply for these programs, but they're available. And we also give seminars on Grihastha life for people who are about to enter into that environment. So they know a little bit more about what it means to be a devotee as a husband, what it means to be a devotee as a wife. Yeah. So all of these things are available through proper education. When that education is not taken or not available, either one, then people will have a tendency to make mistakes, act on emotions, and commit offenses. So yeah, it's a very explosive situation, and it's a very difficult situation to ameliorate, but through education, it can mitigate in a very large sense many of the problems of married life. And so abuse is not a way to deal with the situation. There's verbal abuse, there's physical abuse. Both of these things are wrong.
Devi Mataji, please go ahead.
So Guru Maharaj, I just want to humbly say that this problem of domestic violence so prevalent in the world is also, of course, prevalent in our society because we are just a microcosm of what happens in the world. Verbal violence can understand, physical violence also, but emotional violence is a very subtle, very insidious thing where people can make you feel stupid, wrong, foolish, etc., because of the power of authority they have over you. It is something very difficult to even figure out or understand. And this is something that also needs to be highlighted. Then there's spiritual abuse or pastoral abuse, where someone in a position of authority, either a leader or the father or the husband, uses his position and uses Shastra to perpetuate abuse. So this is also prevalent among, the other types. Financial abuse, where anyway, there are many things going on that we need to address. I just wanted to point out that there is a lot of aspects to domestic violence and abuse.
Yeah, the solution is Krishna consciousness. Sukavaha.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. Oh, Lord, Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, I have a question regarding Ravana. So, basically, Ravana's father was Vishrava, right?
Yeah.
How come he accepted Kaikasi? Doesn't he wasn't he aware about the, like, his child can be demon and very strong? Because he was very like Rishi, isn't it? Vishrava was so.
What's the question? Kaikei?
Kaikasi, why did Rishi Vishrava married to Kaikasi? Was like, he should be aware about the something like the child will be demon and maybe very powerful. And
I'd have to go back and find the reference. I don't know if you know where that reference is, and that would be interesting because what led up to that particular marriage. Have that information, and I'm sure it's available because these histories are also recorded. But you might say that he whether he was forced into it, whether he was seeing that was, he didn't even consider her nature, he was just attracted in other ways. I don't know. It might be a good thing for you to look it up and see if you can find it. Tell us tomorrow.
okay. Thank you very much.
I'll try to find it too.
Thank you very much. Your answer will be much better than mine, definitely.
Yeah, I have a personal question to ask.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry to divert from the subject matter, but just real fast, and we can get back to how old is your daughter?
My daughter,
What's the
she will be, she's 24.
20 what?
24 years old.
Oh, she's 24. Okay. Yeah. Because, I'm thinking if I meet someone.
All right, Guru. Yeah.
All right, back to Ram.
Thank you.
Sridevi Mataji has a question. Please go ahead, Mataji, and ask.
No, it's not a question. I'm just humbly asking Guru Maharaj. I just did a very quick Google search and found something why Vishrava married Kaikeshi and how their children were born Rakshasas. Would it be okay to read it out, Guru Maharaj?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So here it says that a Rakshasa named Sali, who was like a demon king, he urged his daughter Kaikeshi to seek Vishrava as her husband, promising her that their children would rival Kuber. So Kaikeshi found Vishrava, the sage, while he was performing a yagya and told him of her father's wish to marry him. The all-cognizant Vishrava informed this beautiful Rakshasi that their children, if produced, would be Rakshasas of cruel exploits. However, she prostrated before him, seeking children of his disposition. Vishrava agreed to wed her, although he forewarned her that only their last child would inherit his disposition. Accordingly, Kaikeyi gave birth to the terrible Rakshasas, Ravan, Kumbhakarna, and Shurpanakha, and one virtuous Rakshasa who had the characteristics of his Brahmin father, Vibhishana.
Oh, okay. So was what's her name? Degashi or something? What was her name?
Kaikeshi, she was the daughter of a demon king called Sumali.
What's his name? Smali?
Sumali is the father of Kaikeshi,
Oh,
She-
okay.
even daughter of this demon king, and he wanted her to seek Vishrava as her husband, knowing him to be a very powerful sage, because he wanted their children to rival Kuber.
Oh, he was against Kuvera.
Mhm.
And Vishrava is the son of Kuvera.
No, he's the son of Pulastya Muni, Guru Maharaj.
Oh,
He's the son of Pulastya Muni and Manini, and he, he's the son of Pulastya Muni.
There's some connection between Vishrava and the chariot that Ravana had was Kuvera's chariot. Yeah, that was the connection. Okay. He has stolen that from Kuvera. So interesting. Okay. So there's the answer, Sukava. You got it?
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Did we end here?
Yes, if we have no further questions, and we'll continue with the Ramayana series leading up to Ram Navami. Correct, Maharaj?
Yeah, we'll do different bits and pieces of some of the
Okay.
pastimes and some of the more important messages. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you very
devotees
much
for
for this.
attending. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. All glories to
Thank you very much.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Bye.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Hello, Prabhupada ki jai. We got
Jai.
Dinanath Gauranga, Sri Devi, Shilpa, Samrata, Revati, Prabha